one of the key issues that I think we can't really deny, and people who are, on the side of Ukraine but acknowledge it from just a purely military standpoint, people like Michael Kaufman, for example, Ukraine does have a manpower shortage. There is a problem here, and with the events, shall we call them, around Sumy at the moment, and Ukraine, I think, has been looking at altering its conscription age again. How do you feel about this angle, this element? Are you worried, or you think that it's more about Ukraine's ability to create in-house technology to compensate?
If Ukraine is producing more of these FPV drones than Russia, if Ukraine has better operators than Russia, you can compensate for a manpower problem. I'm not going to tell Ukraine how to fight this war. It doesn't make sense to me that Ukraine does not conscript, draft, or mobilize 18 to 26-year-olds. I'm never going to understand that. They don't have to be in combat roles or combat positions, but there should not be young, able-bodied men in Ukraine not doing something productive for this war.
Right.
They can be given exemptions if they're working in the railroad service. They can be given exemptions if they're working in an artillery factory. But every young man in Ukraine needs to be doing something productive to support their state in this time of war. But it's not my country, not my people. They're going to make their own decisions, and they've done the calculations. And when you look at the average age of a soldier on the front lines for both Russia and Ukraine, it's like 38. The average age of a soldier on the front lines in this war is like 38. Wow. And I understand the argument. I know people in the comments section are going to say, we can't kill off our young. We need them to reproduce to have a future at all. But this isn't, in my opinion, this isn't a critical debate to have. Ukraine is doing more with less, and they're going to continue finding ways to do more with less. And Russia's manpower advantage, they've had it for 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. Where are the results on the battlefield? They've gone 10 kilometers in the direction of Toretsk and Donetsk. 3.5 years of fighting, continuous warfare, and they've gone 10 kilometers. They took Bakhmut at the end of 2022, early 2023. The next town on the road was Chasiv Yar, and they still don't have full control of Chasiv Yar 2 years later. There actually is a military science about troop concentrations in a war like this, trench warfare with landmines and artillery and now FPV drones. And if you increase the concentration of troops in a trench or a dugout, it just leads to higher casualties. Mm-hmm. Like they've done the military science. How many guys do we need to put on this line or in this trench to have like an 80 or 90% of holding it from an assault? And yeah, you could put 30 guys in that trench and they might 100% of the time be able to repel an attack. But then every time an artillery shell goes off or, a grad rocket, your casualties your casualties will go up faster and higher if you have more people in these positions. Russia and Ukraine both know this, which is why they want troops dispersed. They want thinner lines. But yeah, sometimes Russia has a breakthrough and they take a wheat field. But what was the cost? How many soldiers, how many lives did they lose advancing 1 kilometer through an empty wheat field?
Yeah, I think it's really shown the asymmetry of this, hasn't it? I feel that word is a little bit overused these days, but certainly Ukraine can do more with less. You don't necessarily have to have tons and tons of the best strategic bombers, i.e., right, the staunch illustration of how well Ukraine has done with literal bits that you can buy off the shelf kind of components and take out these planes which are Soviet era, and Russia doesn't have the ability to physically replace because the parts don't exist anymore. The factories don't exist. It's insane. And